In this segment, we will review the standard student survey questions. You may want to keep your protocol manual on hand as it contains detailed information about the survey process, including the purpose of each question, how to code student responses, and tips for resolving common problems that might occur. Remember, before you begin interviewing concentrators, you will need copies of your intro script, which contains conversation prompts for both students and proxies. You will also want to make sure you have adequate copies of both your student and proxy survey forms. The introductory script that you will use to begin each of your calls is designed to quickly introduce the survey to the student and get them involved by asking important questions regarding their programs. Notice that you have 3 potential dialogues which vary slightly depending on whether you are speaking with a concentrator in one program, a concentrator in multiple programs, or a proxy. If you printed your follow-up student list report previously, you may refer to it to determine how many programs your respondents became concentrators in and in which grade. You may then enter that information into the blanks on the intro script form. Following the appropriate prompts, if the student completed a single program, you will begin your conversation with the statement, "In this grade, you achieved the concentrator status in a program in this field. Do you have a few minutes to answer some questions about what you're doing now?" All responses will be kept confidential. If the student completed multiple programs, you will open the dialog instead with, "We're talking with students who achieved the concentrator status in more than one program in high school. Do you have a few minutes to answer some questions about what you're doing now?" All responses will be kept confidential. Our records show that you completed the first, second, and third programs. Are you pursuing one of these more than the other? If the students respond that they are focusing on one program in particular, then you may ask which one, and fill the appropriate blank with the student's response. You conclude the introduction by saying, "This is the program I would like you to think about during this interview." If the respondents answer that they are not pursuing any one particular program, you may explain that we can only follow up on one program. Which would you like to think about during this interview? It is very important to record this response as you will be unable to add the student's survey information into CTEIS without indicating the program that the student chose. At times, you may find yourself speaking with a parent, guardian, or close relative of the student. In these cases, the introduction is altered slightly to read, "We're talking with students who achieved the concentrator status in high school CTE programs to see how they're doing. This student was in the such and such program. How could I reach him or her?" Recall that it is important to attempt to contact a concentrator before you fall back on proxy responses. If it is apparent that the concentrator will remain unreachable throughout the duration of the follow-up project, you may ask the proxy to take the survey by stating, "You could probably answer some of the questions. It would only take a couple minutes, and all responses will be kept confidential." This script focuses on communicating 3 key elements between the interviewer and respondents: the purpose of the call, the student's program selection, and the confidentiality of any information that is shared. After completing introductions, you will continue on to the student phone survey form unless you are speaking with a proxy, in which case you will use the proxy phone survey form. The student phone survey form is the standard follow-up questionnaire. You may notice that the proxy and mail surveys are variants of the student form and intended for proxy use or self-evaluation. The student survey consists of 9 questions and 4 main sections, A through D, each of which relates to a different facet of the student's life. Part A relates to the student's current status. Begin the survey by asking, "Let's start with what you're doing now. Are you going to school? Working?" Look through subsections A through G. You must make sure you fill in either a yes or no response for each item, including whether the student is currently in a training program or attending school or college, working as an apprentice, working or on a paid leave, vacation, or sick leave, on full-time active duty in the military, on part-time duty in the military, in a national and community service program, or volunteering in the Peace Corps. If the student is volunteering on an unpaid leave of absence, on seasonal layoff, hospitalized, in jail, or deceased, check the appropriate box. If the student falls into a separate category, you may specify the current status on the H7 Other line. Make sure you verify your survey responses with the student before continuing to the second question. Keep in mind that if a student on your list is deceased, you should skip directly to the end of the survey. Part B asks about the student's current schooling or training. You will skip this section if concentrators state they are not currently pursuing further education. For any students who indicate they are currently involved in schooling, state, "I have some questions about your schooling or training." In your major area of study or training, how much do you use the skills you learned in this program? A lot, some, hardly ever, or not at all. For any students who answer that they use their skills hardly ever or not at all, you will also ask, right now you don't use your training, but how much do you anticipate using it in the future? A lot, some, hardly ever, or not at all. This is to catch any students who are currently completing general education requirements before moving into a major or minor track of study. The next question asks, where are you going to school? The student should identify a primary institution of enrollment, and you will need to categorize it as a business or trade school, a community college or university, a military school, or a school in the other category. You do not need to name the school directly. The last question in Section B asks, what type of program are you in? The student will need to indicate whether the track of study he or she is in at the time of the interview is considered an apprenticeship or on-the-job training, or if it awards a certificate, an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or something else, which you will need to specify using the blank next to the other option. Part C relates to the student's current employment, and you will skip this section for any concentrators who indicate they are not working at the time of your interview. You should open this section by stating, "Now I'd like to talk about your job as it relates to your selected program." On your job, how much would you say you were using the skills you were taught? A lot, some, hardly ever, or not at all. The following question relates to job satisfaction, asking, how strongly do you agree with the statement, "I am satisfied with my present job"? Do you strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree? Remember not to color your respondent's answers with voice inflections or additional comments. You are seeking the student's level of job satisfaction. The next question asks, how many hours a week do you work? Fill in the blank with the appropriate number of hours if possible. If the student is unsure, ask the student to add the hours from all jobs together, then ask, would you say it's 35 hours a week or more? This will allow the state to determine whether the student is employed full-time. The final question in Part C asks, including tips and commissions, how much do you make an hour? Not all respondents are able to give an hourly rate, and in these circumstances, you may want to ask if they can give you a figure using a different increment. The CTEIS software will translate any weekly, monthly, or yearly pay rates into an hourly wage for you. Part D consists of one question intended only for students not currently working. If you did not complete Section C because a respondent does not have a job, ask, are you currently looking for a job? The answer should be coded as a yes or no. After the survey questions have been completed, you should ask the respondent what is the best way to contact you if we need to follow up on this survey, and record the response within the communication exchange box. Thank the respondent for his or her time by stating, "Thank you, that's all I needed. Now, are there any comments you'd like to make to help us improve our program?" Allow the respondents to comment on any CTE experiences they would like to share, review your survey forms, and your call is complete. As you continue interviewing your concentrators, know that the state tracks the number of surveys your fiscal agency successfully completes. Any students who are marked as non-contacts can lower the final response rate of your district. In general, the state looks for response rates of anywhere between 90 and 100%. Should you fall below a 50% response rate, your fiscal agency will become non-compliant with the state's standards, and you may risk recapture of CTE program funds. Some ideas for keeping response rates high include preparing students for follow-up calls before they leave school. Ask concentrators for 3 or 4 additional contact names, phone numbers, and email addresses prior to their leaving school, either through an exit survey or some other method. While telephone surveys have very high response rates, you can also send mailings out to concentrators to increase awareness of the follow-up project and direct them to the self-survey portal at www.ctesstudentfollowup.com. According to the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, phone solicitors may not call households earlier than 8 a.m. or later than 9 p.m. While this does not prohibit schools from conducting surveys outside this range of hours, you will likely have the best luck with responses by adhering to the 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. guideline. Make at least 6 attempts to reach students at different times of the day and on different days of the week. Find the rhythm that suits your schedule and your students' schedules the best. Try making calls from a school phone to help people screening with caller ID identify you. Parents and students are more likely to answer a call if they are aware it is related to school business. If you are having trouble connecting with concentrators due to disconnected or incorrect phone numbers, you can also try using online telephone directories such as whitepages.com. Attachment B in your protocol manual has many more suggestions for improving response rates and handling difficult calls. This concludes the review of your survey questions. To learn how to compile your data in the CTEIS application, click the link called Step 5, Enter Survey Data into CTEIS.